Hello, and welcome to What's Going On, a new segment in which myself, SD Wickett, and Michael Curzon discuss stories that don't quite make it to print. Michael, first of all, happy Freedom Day.
Oh, thanks very much. Yeah, it's
Yes,
June 21st. We're recording this. It's
yes.
supposed to be Freedom Day, but
With
freedom
a
delayed is the better word, I think.
yes, Freedom Day with a nudge and a wink. As you know, we are no freer than we were last month. Um, we're here to discuss the Department of Education's latest guidances towards schools. Michael, what's going on?
Well, as you say, this is the time we should be unlocking, returning to lives as normal. That's both in entertainment, in travel, and probably most importantly, in education. Yet, all the signs suggest that what the government is actually doing is gearing up for more restrictions. So, the latest email bulletin, or one of the latest, to schools from the Department of Education essentially tell schools to make sure they are prepared and that they have the proper framework in place for the reintroduction of asymptomatic testing sites, of mask wearing, not only in communal areas, not that that would be any better if it was just there, but also in classrooms, as well as limited attendance, so remote learning. And this is in the case of local outbreaks of COVID. So, I mean, it seems essentially that the fear around variants is what's pushing this again. We've heard the other day there might be a new variant originating in Russia, which is going to be spreading, which would just be perfect, wouldn't it? After all the collusion stories over the past few years and all the corruption stories, it would be the cherry on the top just to have a
Mm.
COVID variant from Russia, and that would of course make us all forget just quite how bad China has been, especially over the past year. But yeah, that's the main story, that we're gearing up, not unlocking at this time where after 15 months now, we really should be saying enough is enough.
Mm-hmm. What this tells me is that the idea that they're focusing on local outbreaks is what this tells me is that the government may be gearing up for the dreaded tiers to return.
Hmm. I think that's quite right. I mean, not only are sort of local areas being told to make sure they're ready, but more specifically, areas are being told that so long as not many schools are involved in the reintroduction of restrictions, they can sort of decide how to do this thing themselves. They're being given the framework to reintroduce these things off their own back. Whereas before, say on the mask mandate, schools were told actually you're not allowed to make up your own mind. You can't say no more masks or yes to masks when the government has said the opposite. So I think that's quite a worrying sign, especially when you see what the union's opinion is on these sorts of matters. It's always more restrictions, more remote learning, less real
Yeah,
learning.
it's almost as if teachers don't want to teach at the moment.
Yeah, well, certainly they're representatives in unions. I don't know what the view is among teachers themselves. We have a few writing for the magazine. We've got two teachers who write for us regularly who certainly wouldn't agree with the view of the unions who are supposed to represent them. But yeah, I mean, one of the ridiculous things in this story, then, as I say, is the reintroduction of asymptomatic testing sites within schools. But that's just a sign this sort of thing can go on forever, because we had a chap from the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine, not a snappy title, say yesterday that actually the data suggests we could unlock early. We could unlock on July 5th, I think is the midway point, because the data is looking good. Fine, cases are increasing slightly, but one, that's among younger people who don't get harmed as much and hospitalization rates aren't massively increasing. And two, part of the reason that cases are increasing, positive tests that is because more tests are taking place. And the results from these increased number of tests doesn't necessarily represent the wider population. And I think the same would be the case in schools if they were to reintroduce more asymptomatic testing sites. They'd have more tests, therefore more positive results. Although also the PCR test has been under further criticism today. And then more lockdowns justified out of it. And it seems to be a never-ending process
Mm.
where they test more, find a few more cases, and whilst there's no more deaths or hospitalizations, I think there were 6 yesterday on June 20th, they still managed to find some quote explanation or justification
Mm.
for never-ending lockdowns.
Mm. I mean, yeah, like look at the list, right? It's reintroducing testing. It's masking classrooms and communal areas. It's limiting visits from the public, like open days, performances, limiting attendance for primary schools in year 1 and 2, limiting secondary school attendance. I mean, the government doesn't seem to have much faith in its own vaccine.
No, that's it, isn't it? It's great, and we see this when Boris announced the extension to Freedom Day. He said himself that we want to extend till July 19th because by then we will have a wall of immunity, was his quote, and we'll have 75% of people fully vaccinated. But even then, he said a proportion of the elderly and vulnerable may still succumb to the virus, even if they've had 2 jabs. So it's at 1 minute, it's a few weeks to save the NHS, and that's all that's needed. And then after a number of other hoops we've stepped through, it's all been focused around the vaccine, and it's around the vaccine rollout that our freedom depends. Yet now, when massive numbers of people have been vaccinated, and now the whole adult population has been invited to be vaccinated, or at least can book a vaccine appointment, we're still being told actually it might not be good enough. Maybe we'll wait until we've had some booster jabs late in the winter, something like this. Which leads on to another story on this actually, which is that the Justice Secretary, I believe he was, essentially refused yesterday to decline the idea that there could be more lockdowns in winter. So somebody from, the director for COVID at Public Health England said we may need more lockdowns this winter. I'm going to say that sentence again because I made more wrong words than correct ones. So the director for COVID at Public Health England said that we may need to do more lockdowns this winter. The director for COVID at Public Health England said yesterday that we may have to do further lockdowns this winter, which the Justice Secretary, Robert Buckland, didn't deny, and even said you can't ever say mission accomplished with COVID.
Well, I think Chris Whitty said the same thing, right? Where we're looking at more lockdowns in the wintertime. But again, if does the government have faith in its vaccine or not? We've been told repeatedly that this is it. This thing is, it works 100%. It's it's multiple effective. It works against all the variants. You should take it. You must take it. If you to do your part, you must take it. But even if you do take it, there's a very real chance that come winter time, you're going to be back in your home all day.
Yeah.
I don't get it. I don't get it anymore.
Well, another sign of this is from in London, where Westminster City Council, has been advertising a contract for the building of body storage facilities, they say, in case of an excess death situation. And again, this was all over the Indian variant, or the Delta variant, as we're now told to call it. £6 million contract for over 4 years, by the way, which is also quite telling. For, as I say, the building of places to put more dead bodies when the new wave, as we're being told, hits. And which reminds me almost of the Nightingale hospitals, which famously were built in case there's this massive increase and, surprise, surprise, weren't used. And there are other reasons for that, such as there not being enough people able to use the, what's the word I'm looking for? What's the thing? Ventilators. There are other reasons for that, such as not enough people being able to monitor the ventilators in these places, but also I think a lack of demand for the areas, which led to their not being used. And I think we'll see the same with these body storage facilities. And again, just the fact they are still gearing up when we should be exiting all of this is both saddening, frustrating, and completely mind-boggling.
Compare this to this time last year when we were basically being bribed with half-priced meals to leave our homes.
Yeah.
It's early summer, right? This is the best time to get out there and live your life. I mean, it's the time of lowest transmission. It honestly it goes beyond reason, and I can't help but but laugh at this point, because if I don't laugh, I'll probably start crying.
That's
I mean, it's the idea that anyone thinks that there's going to be just bodies piling up in apocalyptic numbers is just it's ludicrous.
It is, and it's part of, this is a little plug here, part of the Torocracy, which is, I think, the word you came up with for us,
Hmm. Hmm.
the cover of our latest issue, which you can find details of on the site. And we argue within the issue that essentially this won't end until we make it end. I think we have to make a choice now. It's June 21st. A lot of our readers actually haven't been wearing masks or distancing for a while anyway, and I think most of the editors are probably the same. But I think most people now can say now, from this date, which we were promised for so long would be Freedom Day, the day we were all waiting for, and which people are vaccinated for, and which people haven't seen their family for. They're waiting for this date. We should say, actually, enough is enough. I'm not wearing a mask anymore. I'm not distancing. I'm going to go out, enjoy myself, live my life, and most importantly, make these decisions for myself.
Yeah, yeah. You have to ask yourself what's more likely to happen: you getting your freedom back because you've taken it back, or you being given it back by someone who is enjoying unprecedented power, not only in their own lifetime, but in in post-war British history,
Historically, yeah.
to give it back to you. And that's not going to happen. Anyone who understands the nature of power is going to knows full well that this is not going to be handed back on a platter.
Hmm.
I mean, I'm not saying go out and riot or go out and smash windows. I think that's uncivilized barbarity. But it's just if a general culture of polite disobedience emerged
Yeah.
and was rigid and couldn't be bullied, then I think we'd see changes faster than if we just sat around and waited for it.
Absolutely. I think Lord Jonathan Sumption said this. It's not about going out and smashing things up. It's just going out, meeting people, talking to people, not masking, just acting as normal. It's not really very rebellious, although these days it is. I remember Peter Hitchens sort of famously said last year that he grew a beard as a sign of rebellion, just because he didn't want to wear the mask. He wanted to show that he was in his youthful sort of rebellious stage again, and civilly disobeying the government. And I think we should all do that. I'm not very good at growing a beard, I must say, but I'll happily not wear the mask and meet people just as we do in normal human life and as we did before all this
Hmm.
struck off.
Yes, I have neither a beard nor the desire to put a shop window through, so I will join you in your fighting struggle.
Oh, good. I'm pleased to hear it. Well, I think, Sam, that's what's going on this
I,
week.
I believe it is. We'll be back again soon when the inevitable next story emerges that
Yeah.
we'll want to take a look at. But for now, I've been SD Wickett. Thank you, Michael. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you again next time. Cheers.